A nation is breaking. The United States of America, young, ambitious, expanding rapidly across a continent, is becoming divided by something deeper than politics. Slavery, North against South, free states against slave states, factories against plantations, Congress against itself. And in the center of this storm stands a man history almost forgot. Not a war hero, not a revolutionary, not a charismatic leader. A self-educated boy born in poverty, who unexpectedly became President of the United States after the sudden death of Zachary Taylor. His name was Millard Fillmore. Some called him weak. Others called him practical. Many blamed him for delaying a civil war that could no longer be stopped. But one question still remains. Did Millard Fillmore save the Union temporarily, or help destroy it permanently? Tonight, we explore the life, rise, presidency, controversies, and legacy of America's 13th president. The man trapped between compromise and catastrophe. This is the story of Millard Fillmore. Millard Fillmore was born on January 7, 1800, in a small log cabin in Cayuga County, New York. America itself was still new. George Washington had died only weeks earlier. The Constitution was barely functioning. The frontier stretched endlessly westward. Life was harsh. Fillmore's parents were poor farmers struggling to survive in the wilderness of early America. There were no luxuries, no powerful family connections, no elite education. The Fillmore family worked constantly just to stay alive. Young Millard grew up splitting wood, farming land, hauling water, and enduring brutal winters. His childhood was defined by exhaustion. Yet even as a boy, something separated him from many around him, an obsession with learning. At age 14, Fillmore was sent away to become a clothmaker's apprentice. The experience was miserable. The work was repetitive, the treatment harsh, the future hopeless. Apprentices often lived under strict control with little freedom. But Fillmore discovered books. He read constantly whenever he could. History, law, politics, literature. Books became his escape from poverty. Unlike presidents born into wealth and influence, Fillmore educated himself almost entirely through relentless self-study. He had little formal schooling, yet he possessed discipline and ambition. One local teacher recognized Fillmore's intelligence and encouraged him to pursue learning seriously. This changed his life forever. Fillmore later said education was the greatest tool for social mobility in America. He believed knowledge could transform ordinary people into leaders. This belief would shape his political philosophy for the rest of his life. Eventually, he left the apprenticeship and began studying law. For a poor frontier boy, this was extraordinary. Law represented power, status, opportunity, and Fillmore intended to rise. In the 1820s, Fillmore moved to Buffalo, New York. At the time, Buffalo was exploding with opportunity. The Erie Canal had transformed New York into an economic powerhouse. Trade surged, population exploded, business flourished. Fillmore entered this rapidly changing world as a young lawyer trying to build a reputation. He worked relentlessly. Unlike charismatic political stars, Fillmore advanced quietly. He was methodical, organized, disciplined. He became known as dependable rather than inspiring. But in politics, dependability often matters more than charisma. In 1826, Fillmore married Abigail Powers. She became one of the most intellectually respected women connected to the White House during the era. Abigail loved literature and education. Unlike many women of her time, she possessed deep intellectual curiosity. Their marriage became a partnership centered around learning and ambition. She strongly influenced Fillmore's appreciation for books and education. Together they represented a different kind of American rise, not aristocracy, but self-made advancement. Fillmore entered politics during the rise of Andrew Jackson. America was transforming into a mass democracy. Political parties grew powerful. Campaigns became aggressive. Public rallies expanded. But Fillmore disliked emotional populism. He opposed many aspects of Jacksonian politics, especially executive overreach. Eventually, he joined the Whig Party. The Whigs believed in congressional power, economic modernization, national infrastructure, banking systems, industrial growth. Fillmore fit naturally into this vision. He preferred stability over revolution, procedure over chaos, compromise over extremism. Fillmore entered the U.S. House of Representatives in 1833. He quickly gained respect for his intelligence and work ethic. Unlike fiery speakers who dominated headlines, Fillmore mastered policy details. He studied legislation carefully. He understood economics, and he built relationships quietly behind the scenes. This made him effective, but not famous. During Fillmore's congressional years, America expanded aggressively westward. New territories created dangerous political questions. Would slavery spread west? Every new territory threatened the balance between North and South. The issue haunted Congress constantly, and Fillmore stood directly in the middle. He personally disliked slavery, but he also feared national collapse. This internal conflict would define his presidency later. The Whig Party itself was unstable. Northern Whigs and Southern Whigs increasingly disagreed over slavery. Some wanted stronger opposition to slavery's expansion. Others wanted compromise at any cost. Fillmore tried to hold the party together, but America itself was beginning to fracture. The Mexican-American War dramatically expanded U.S. territory. America gained massive lands including California, New Mexico, Utah, Arizona regions. Suddenly, the slavery question exploded again. Would these territories become free states or slave states? Southern politicians feared losing power. Northern abolitionists demanded restrictions. Congress became a battlefield. Legendary statesman Henry Clay proposed a massive compromise package in 1850. The Compromise of 1850 attempted to calm the nation through concessions. Key elements included California entering as a free state, stronger fugitive slave laws, popular sovereignty in territories, slave trade abolished in Washington, D.C. The nation erupted into debate. Some believed compromise could save America. Others believed compromise only delayed inevitable conflict. Millard Fillmore watched carefully. Soon, destiny would place the entire crisis in his hands. In 1848, war hero Zachary Taylor won the presidency. Fillmore became vice president, but Taylor largely ignored him. Vice presidents held little power during this era. Then tragedy struck. On July 9, 1850, Taylor suddenly died after a severe illness. America was stunned. And Millard Fillmore, the quiet, overlooked vice president, suddenly became president of the United States. At one of the most dangerous moments in American history, the nation stood on the edge of collapse. Southern states threatened secession. Northern abolitionists intensified resistance. Congress was paralyzed. Violence loomed everywhere. Fillmore inherited chaos immediately. Unlike Taylor, Fillmore supported compromise. And within days, the direction of the presidency changed dramatically. Fillmore believed preserving the Union was the highest priority, even above moral certainty. He supported Henry Clay's compromise efforts and worked aggressively to pass them. To Fillmore, compromise represented survival. Without it, he feared immediate civil war. Many Americans agreed. At first, the most controversial part of the compromise was the Fugitive Slave Act. This law required citizens and officials in free states to assist in capturing escaped slaves. Federal commissioners gained extraordinary power. Accused fugitives received almost no legal protections. Northern outrage exploded. Many people who previously ignored slavery now witnessed its brutal reality directly. Families were torn apart publicly. Free Black Americans feared kidnapping. The law shocked the North, and Fillmore enforced it aggressively. Fillmore believed enforcing the law proved commitment to constitutional order. Instead, it destroyed trust. Abolitionists condemned him. Northern Whigs abandoned him. Southern extremists still distrusted him. The compromise temporarily reduced tensions, but emotionally, America was becoming even more divided. Fillmore governed cautiously. He preferred rational administration over emotional leadership. Unlike Andrew Jackson's aggressive populism or Polk's expansionist energy, Fillmore focused on stability. He avoided dramatic rhetoric. He sought balance constantly. Yet the nation no longer wanted balance. America was radicalizing. Fillmore reorganized Taylor's cabinet and brought in experienced leaders. He worked closely with figures like Daniel Webster, Thomas Corwin, Alexander Stewart. His administration focused heavily on maintaining order and economic growth. Despite sectional tensions, the American economy continued expanding rapidly. Railroads spread, industry grew, cities expanded. But underneath the prosperity, political hatred intensified. While President Fillmore endured painful personal loss, his wife Abigail became seriously ill. Shortly after leaving the White House, she died. Their daughter, Mary Abigail, later died young as well. Fillmore experienced profound grief privately. History often remembers political battles, but behind the presidency stood a man losing his family. One of Fillmore's most important foreign policy achievements involved Japan. For centuries, Japan remained largely isolated from the Western world. Fillmore authorized Commodore Matthew C. Perry to lead an expedition to Japan. The mission aimed to open trade and diplomatic relations. Though Perry's famous expedition occurred mainly after Fillmore left office, the initiative began under Fillmore's administration. This decision would eventually transform global history. Japan's opening accelerated modernization and reshaped Asian geopolitics permanently. Fillmore supported cautious international expansion without reckless warfare. Unlike aggressive expansionists seeking constant conquest, Fillmore feared destabilization. He understood America already faced internal danger. Another major war could intensify sectional conflict. The Compromise of 1850 temporarily preserved the Union, but it destroyed the Whig Party. Northern and Southern Whigs could no longer coexist politically. The Fugitive Slave Act became toxic in the North. Meanwhile, Southern leaders increasingly demanded stronger protections for slavery. The middle ground collapsed, and Fillmore became trapped in the ruins. In 1852, the Whigs refused to renominate Fillmore. Instead, they selected General Winfield Scott. The election became disastrous for the Whigs. The Democratic candidate Franklin Pierce won decisively. The Whig Party soon disintegrated almost completely. One of America's major political parties vanished, because the slavery crisis had become too powerful to contain. After leaving office, Fillmore returned to Buffalo. Unlike many ex-presidents, he never regained major national influence. America moved toward greater extremism. The calm compromise politics Fillmore believed in were disappearing. In the 1850s, Fillmore became associated with the American Party, commonly known as the Know Nothing Party. The movement focused heavily on anti-immigrant and anti-Catholic sentiment. This remains one of the most controversial parts of Fillmore's legacy. The party feared growing immigration from Ireland and Germany. Supporters believed immigrants threatened American identity and political stability. Fillmore himself was more moderate than many party extremists, but his association damaged his reputation permanently. Fillmore ran for president again in 1856 under the American Party banner. But the political landscape had transformed. A new force had emerged: the Republican Party. Led by anti-slavery momentum, Republicans rapidly replaced the collapsing Whigs. Fillmore finished far behind. His political era was over. America was heading towards civil war. The Compromise of 1850 delayed conflict, but it solved nothing. Every few years, the slavery crisis returned even stronger. Kansas exploded into violence. The Dred Scott decision enraged the North. Abolitionism intensified. Southern secession threats multiplied. Compromise itself became impossible. Historians still debate Fillmore fiercely. Supporters argue he prevented immediate civil war. He stabilized the country temporarily. He upheld constitutional order. He bought valuable time for the Union. Critics argue the Fugitive Slave Act empowered slavery. Moral compromise strengthened division. Delaying war made future conflict bloodier. He placed union above justice. The truth may be both. Fillmore governed during an impossible moment. Any decision carried catastrophic consequences. When the Civil War began in 1861, Fillmore watched in horror. Everything he had feared finally happened. America split apart. Hundreds of thousands would die. Cities burned. Families divided. The Union itself nearly collapsed. Fillmore supported preserving the Union during the war, but he criticized some of Abraham Lincoln's wartime policies. Even in old age, Fillmore remained deeply committed to constitutional restraint and moderation. History transformed after Lincoln. Compared to Lincoln's moral clarity and wartime leadership, Fillmore faded into obscurity. Most Americans barely remembered him. He became known mainly as a forgotten president. Yet forgotten presidents often governed during the hardest transitions. And Fillmore's presidency represented the final desperate attempt to preserve compromise before America exploded. Fillmore was not charismatic. He lacked Jackson's force, Lincoln's storytelling, Jefferson's brilliance, Washington's presence. But he possessed intelligence and discipline. He was careful with words, reserved emotionally, organized almost obsessively. Some admired his steadiness. Others viewed him as uninspiring. Despite criticism, Fillmore's rise remained remarkable. He was born into deep poverty, self-educated, no aristocratic background, no military fame, no political dynasty. Yet he reached the presidency through persistence and intellect alone. In many ways, he represented the ideal of social mobility in early America. The Fugitive Slave Act transformed ordinary American streets into scenes of fear. Federal marshals hunted escaped slaves across northern cities. Crowds gathered during arrests. Some citizens resisted violently. Others complied reluctantly. The law forced Americans to confront slavery directly, and many who had once remained neutral became radicalized against it. In 1852, Harriet Beecher Stowe published Uncle Tom's Cabin. The novel emotionally exposed slavery's cruelty to millions of readers. Northern anti-slavery sentiment intensified dramatically. The compromise that Fillmore supported was collapsing culturally. America's conscience was changing. Fillmore consistently ranks among the least remembered American presidents. He lacked dramatic victories. He led no great wars. He inspired no mass movement. Yet his presidency sat directly at the center of America's greatest moral crisis. Fillmore inherited a nearly impossible situation. The United States in 1850 was already deeply fractured. No president could easily solve the slavery crisis peacefully. Fillmore chose compromise because he feared immediate destruction. He believed the Constitution required painful concessions. Whether history agrees remains controversial. Could the Union have survived without compromise in 1850? Or did compromise simply postpone unavoidable bloodshed? This question still shapes Fillmore's reputation today. Because his presidency forces Americans to confront difficult truths. Can compromise solve moral evil? When does moderation become surrender? How long can a divided nation remain united? Millard Fillmore never expected greatness. He never sought to become a legendary president. He was a poor frontier boy who educated himself by candlelight. A lawyer, a legislator, a compromiser. Then suddenly, he became president during one of the most dangerous moments in American history. He tried to hold the nation together. For a moment, he succeeded. But the forces tearing America apart were already too powerful. Compromise delayed the storm. It did not stop it. Today, Fillmore remains overshadowed by giants: Washington, Jefferson, Lincoln. Yet perhaps forgotten presidents reveal history's hardest lessons most clearly. Because they govern not in moments of triumph, but in moments of impossible choices. And Millard Fillmore's presidency was exactly that: an impossible choice between union and justice, between peace and morality, between delay and disaster. The Civil War would soon answer those questions in blood. But before the guns fired, before the Union shattered, before America entered its darkest hour, there was one quiet president standing in the middle of the storm. His name was Millard Fillmore, and history still debates whether he saved America temporarily or merely postponed its collapse. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss an upload, and let me know your thoughts in the comments below. See you in the next video.